Greetings! I'm Anthony Elmore, President and Founder of the proud Black Buddhist World Association. My lecture today is called Buddhism and Christmas. How is it that the almost 3,000-year-old philosophy of Buddhism coincides with Christmas, or how should we react to the holiday of Christmas? We at the Proud Black Buddhists bring to you a black perspective of Buddhism and Christmas. Now, we at the Proud Black Buddhist World Association practice the Buddhist teachings taught by the 13th century Japanese sage Nichiren Shonin. Nichiren Shonin teaches that only the Lotus Sutra is the correct teachings of the Buddha Shakyamuni. Now, please understand that there is a clear and distinct difference between those who practice the Lotus Sutra and those who practice Buddhism. We at the Proud Black Buddhist World Association practice the Lotus Sutra and not Buddhism as we know in the traditional sense. You see, Shakyamuni Buddha, who lived in ancient India around 624 BC, he taught that his highest teachings was the Lotus Sutra, and everyone was to discard all that he taught other than the Lotus Sutra. See, the Lotus Sutra deals with the law of cause and effect, and that is what the Lotus Sutra teaches. Now, that Nichiren writes in a Go-Sho. Now, his first Go-Sho was called On Attaining Buddhahood. Now, on attaining Buddhahood, Nichiren writes, quote, "The Lotus Sutra is the king of sutras, true and correct in both word and principle. Its words are the ultimate reality, and this reality is the mystic truth, or Myoho. It is called the mystic law because it reveals the principle of the mutually inclusive relationship of a single moment of life and all phenomena. That is why this sutra is the wisdom of all Buddhas." Now, Nichiren lets us know that the Lotus Sutra is the correct Buddhist teachings. He writes further in the Go-Sho, quote, "You must never think that any of the 80,000 sacred teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha's lifetime, or any of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, the 3 existences, are outside yourself. Your practice of the Buddhist teachings will not relieve you of the sufferings of birth and death in the least, unless you perceive the true nature of your life. If you seek enlightenment outside yourself, then you're performing even 10,000 practices, and 10,000 good deeds will be in vain." Now, let us put this in common sense terms. Nichiren writes that you must never think any of the 80,000 sacred teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha's lifetime, or any of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions and the 3 existences, are outside yourself. This means that your everyday life is Buddhism. See, Buddhism is not going up to some mountain and meditating, nor is Buddhism what the Japanese Nichiren Shoshu teach organization taught me, that I must go all the way to Japan and see a block of wood called the Daigo Hanzan, and this is Buddhism. This is not what the Buddha teaches. Please understand that the Lotus Sutra teaches us that Christmas is Buddhism, because Christmas is our life. The Buddha says, do not look for the 80,000 Buddhist teachings outside your life. That's what it means. Now, there's a Gosho called the gift of rice. And it says, the truth had lies in the affairs of this world. The Golden Light Sutra states, quote, to have a profound knowledge of this world is itself Buddhism. The Nirvana Sutra states, quote, all of the non-Buddhist scriptures and writings in society are themselves Buddhist teachings and not non-Buddhist teachings. This is what the Nirvana Sutra says. Now, further, he says, when the great teacher Milo compared these passages with one from the 6th volume of the Lotus Sutra that reads, quote, no worldly affairs of life or work are ever contrary to the true reality. He goes on further. He revealed their meanings and pointed out that although the first 2 sutras are profound, since their meaning is still shallow and fails to approach that of the Lotus Sutra, they relate to secular matters in terms of Buddhism, whereas the Lotus Sutra explains that in the end, secular matters are the entirety of Buddhism. Christmas is your life. Christmas is Buddhism. Now, if you want to put up a Christmas tree, a Santa, or do all of the things that Christmas involves, then you are really practicing Buddhism. Now, let's take this thing further. In the Gosho, it's called Winter Always Turns into Spring. It says, at the time of his extinction, the world-honored one of great enlightenment lamented. He says, now I am about to enter nirvana. The only thing that worries me is King Adra Shatru. Bodhisattva Kayapa then asked him, quote, since the Buddha's mercy is impartial, you regret in dying should stem from compassion for all living beings. Why do you single out King Ajashatru? The Buddha replied, quote, suppose a couple has 7 children, one whom fall ill. Though the parents love all their children equally, they worry most about the sick child. Unquote. See, King Ajashatru gave the Buddha living hell. First of all, this king killed his father. He followed the Buddha's cousin Devadatta, who was an evil man. He killed the nun. The Buddha had to eat horse fodder. I mean, he gave the Buddha the greatest possible hell that's incomprehensible, and even with all of the horrible and horrific things he did to the Buddha had compassion for King Ajashatru. And what this teaches us in Buddhism, that Buddhism is a religion of compassion. When the time of Christmas time comes around, it is a time to show love. It is the time to show compassion. That is how Buddhism works. So Buddhism and Christmas goes together like a hand and glove. It is a time to forgive. It is a time to love. So when you're practicing this love and this compassion, you are practicing Buddhism. But let me give you just a little bit more documentation on this. There's a Gosho called, and for the SGI members, it's called Expedient Means and Lifespan Chapter. And for you who are Nichiren Shu, It's called the Gasui Gosho. Now, in this Gosho, Nichiren writes, quote, when we scrutinize the sutras and treatises with care, we find there is a teaching about precepts known as following the customs of the region that corresponds to this. The meaning of this precept is that so long as no seriously offensive act is involved, then even if one were to depart to some slight degree from the teachings of Buddhism, it would be better to avoid going against the manners and customs of the country. This is a precept expounded by the Buddha, unquote. Now, what the Buddha teaches us, that it is okay to deviate from Buddhism a little bit if instead of going against a custom or a land, we who are in the proud Black Buddhists, we grew up into the church, our families go to the church. We have to involve ourselves with people who are non-Buddhists. It's okay to get with our families, to do things with our families, follow the customs. It is better to follow the customs and hang out with your family and to show how broad Buddhism is than to sit back and say, oh, I can't do something because I'm Buddhist. This is not what the Buddha teaches. The precept of the Buddha, it is called Zuyo Beni, or following the local laws and customs of the land. And certainly, one of the biggest holidays in America is Christmas. So we who are Buddhists, we should embrace Christmas instead of saying, oh, I cannot practice. Those who don't practice Buddhism, they are Buddhists. But we practice the Lotus Sutra, and the Lotus Sutra teaches us that by embracing Christmas and embracing the local laws and customs of our land, we are actually embracing Buddhism, as long as we only slightly vary a little bit. It's kind of like someone being so crazy by saying, oh, I cannot be into your wedding because your wedding is in a Christian church and I'm going to be in front of a Christian minister and I don't want to hear this. If you have a friend who is getting married and they're Christian and you're Buddhist, why not go to your friend's wedding? Why not be a part of that wedding? That is not what Buddhism teaches you. Why not go into that church? Buddhism teaches us the middle way. And it's the same with Christmas. I've heard people say that Christmas is a Christian holiday and I do not practice this. But this ain't what the Buddha teaches. Many people go away from their homes and join their families for the Christmas holiday. And you may be in a real strict Christian family that says, well, on Christmas Day, we're going to go to church and pray. So what? You go with your family. It is better to follow the precept and customs of following traditions with your family than to sit back saying, oh, I'm some Buddhism and I got to go up into the mountains. Buddhism is your everyday life. Now, let me bring this to a conclusion. Now, those of us who are African American, we encourage you to embrace Christmas. But not only embrace Christmas, but embrace the entire holiday. Now, we who are African American, we got Christmas to embrace, and the day after Christmas, we got a holiday, an African American holiday called Kwanzaa. And those of you who live in towns where they practice Kwanzaa, look it up. Embrace Kwanzaa too. You know, there's a thing in Kwanzaa called the Nuguso Saba. And it's the 7 days or the 7 principles of Kwanzaa, which corresponds to Buddhism. The first day of Kwanzaa is called Umoja. That means unity. Buddhism teaches unity. The second day of Kwanzaa is called Kuja Chakalia. That means self-determination. What that means in common everyday terms, that we don't have to look to no Japanese or no Asian. We have self-determination. We determine how we're going to practice Buddhism. The third day is called Yajima. It means working together. And the fourth day of Kwanzaa is called Yajama. It means supporting each other. And the fifth day of Kwanzaa means Nia. It means purpose. And the sixth day of Kwanzaa means Kuamba. It's called Kuamba. It means creativity. Like, get with your Buddhist practice and be creative. On Christmas Day, get together and chant and practice Buddhism together. Do Gongyo together. So we have a Christmas Gongyo. That's what Buddhism teaches. And the seventh day of Kwanzaa means Imani. Imani means faith. Faith is Buddhism. So now you got it. Buddhism and Christmas. I'm Anthony F. Elmore, President and founder of the proud Black Buddhist World Association.
Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Let's do it. Raise your hand. Let's clap to fight. Raise your hand. Let's have a little show. Raise your hand. Let's have a fight. Raise your hand. Remember to see. Raise your hand. Put your heart. Raise your hand on me. Raise your hand. Raise your hand to the top. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Stop. Raise your hand. Let's jump and fight. Raise your hand with all of your might. Raise your hand to the finish line. Raise your hand to the top of my mind. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Raise your hand with me. Raise your hand with the things you love. Raise your hand with the things you love. Raise your hand with the hidden in Jesus. Raise your hand. It's friend and tea. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Down. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Look at raise your hand. Raise your hand and do it. Out. Raise your hand. Get to the top. Raise your hand. You cannot stop. Raise your hand to the count of three. Raise your hand. Not a referee. Look at raise your hand. Raise your hand. Cannot stop. Raise your hand to the count of three. Raise your hand. Not a referee. Look at raise your hand. Raise your hand. Look at listen. Raise your hand. Listen. Raise your hand. To raise your hand sometime. Raise your hand. Come on, girl. What is the price to pay? Raise your hand to love. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Raise your hand down. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Look at me. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Look at me. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Look at me.
I get down on my knees and I pray every day. I pray the Lotus Sutra way.